Your customer's the hero, not your product. The most effective marketing tells their story, not yours. That's a quote from Melissa Moody and a sneak peek at today's episode. Hi there, I'm Carrie Curran, B2B Revenue Growth Executive Advisor, Industry Analyst, and host of Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast. Each week, I sit down with top experts to bring you actionable strategies that drive real results. So if you're serious about business growth, hit subscribe and stay ahead of the competition. In Marketing That Resonates, How Empathy and Representation Build Stronger Brands, I sit down with Melissa Moody. She's the former Google leader and founder of Wednesday Women, a community helping female executives increase visibility, credibility, and influence. Melissa and I dive into why empathy, representation, and inclusive leadership aren't just buzzwords. They're the foundation of modern marketing that actually connects. Be sure to stay tuned to the end, where Melissa shares her actionable advice for becoming a visible brand voice, whether it's for your company or your career. Let's go. So welcome, Melissa. Please introduce yourself and share your background and expertise.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Moody. I am currently founder of a group called Wednesday Women. We are a group designed to amplify extraordinary executive women around the world. And that was created as a side hustle because I have been, for the past 5 years, a repeat offender in the world of startups. I have become deeply addicted to startups. I have been a CMO and co-founder. I was also CEO in my last role at a startup. And before that, I actually cut my chops on the opposite end of marketing and business. I was at one of the world's largest companies at Google for almost 14 years. So I think of myself as a long time, 20 plus year marketer, but I recently had someone call me they said, Melissa, you're not a 20-year marketer. You're a serial entrepreneur who's been stuck in marketing for 20 years. So that probably sums me up pretty well. And yeah, really pleased to be here today, Carrie. Carrie, thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks, Melissa. I'm excited for our conversation today. And it's funny, like we've talked about, we've both been marketers for a long time and have seen this evolution, and especially starting with back in the early days of SEO and when you were at Google and I was trying to sell Google services. But it's evolved a lot. But I think, the industry, the channels, the tactics, the different media, the platforms, but also the strategies, but have evolved a lot. And as marketers, we've seen it, we've lived it, and we've kind of had to stay on top of it. But one of the things that hasn't changed is that we always need to be focusing on the customer, the end user, the target audience of our audience, and what we want, how we want to help them. But it's a challenge. And I think one of the things we've talked about is we could all do that better. So what do you think are, kind of from your extensive experience, how could we be doing a better job for our customers?
I'm so glad you phrased it that way, because actually when I was at Google, there was a phrase we all used to say, it almost like a brainwashing tagline almost. It was focus on the user and all else will follow. Yeah. And I actually think that might be the connective thread that has extended through my personal career. Because as I learned marketing, and I love, you and I were chatting earlier, we called it digital marketing. Remember when we were all digital marketers? Yeah. We're just, everybody's a digital marketer now. Yeah. This idea was that it wasn't about kind of, hitting a target person. It was about really understanding the person who would be using the product. So even when they weren't your user yet, you had to understand, why would they be a user? What were they doing in the rest of their lives that might affect their personality as your future user, as your potential user? And then, so I think the way that I think about marketing still today is in that way. If this person is going to be a user, what do I need to know about them? And that is all the traditional marketing stuff of their psychographics and their demographics, but it's also understanding where they fit in the potential market of users, right? Are they the one who adopts quickly and then leaves quickly? Or are they the one who needs to shop around for a long time before they become a user? These are all parts of who they are that then translates into why they need their product, how they're going to use their product. So I think a big thing I see as a major challenge for marketers is we've become divested from product. And I've always believed that a really good marketer needs to deeply understand not just the potential of the person, but then the whole journey into why they want the product, how they use it, how they get started. And then those moments of delight that continue when they use a product, those are parts of your marketing. Not to mention the crappy experiences with your product. Those are parts of marketing too. So, it's always been this thread in my journey that marketing is extremely dependent on whatever product you're selling the person. You're not just selling them something, you're selling them a thing. And that's extended, that was clearly baked into me in my early days. That's very much how I approached marketing at early stage startups, because a lot of it is your product, or let's be honest, the idea of your product at early stage startups. And it's allowed me to also have fun, because it leaves you playing with marketing in a way that is focused on a human at the end of the day. And that's where all the fun is.
Yeah, you're right. And it's the human, and it's the solution, it's the benefit. I always said that the best marketing is the one that puts the idea in the head of your audience that they need you before they realize they need you. That your marketing is so good that they see it and they're like, oh, I need that right now. But in order to get there, to your point, you have to know them better than they know themselves, and really, kind of build that connection. So it's so true. And a big part of that is empathy, and kind of being able to kind of put yourself in their shoes. So like how can brands, like, how do we get there?
I think a hack, I'll just share the hack right up front, and then we can talk a little bit more about it. I think a hack is, you don't even need to put yourself in their shoes. You just need to talk about how awesome they are.
Yeah.
So this is like a total hack that I use, which is your marketing should center around your user. And I say user versus customer, because I have spent time outside of B2B. Like B2B is like the customer, but like call it the customer, call it the user, however you want to phrase it. Everything you should do is putting them forward as the superhero. It's not, oh, they're using my product and here's the reason for it. It's no, they are amazing at what they're doing because they use my product. They could be amazing. They could be better at their job. And look at these other people who are doing amazing. If they use this, they would be even better at doing XYZ that they're out there trying to do. So again, to your point about the benefit, you're making it about the good that would come in the world when they use your product. And the good that would come to them when they use their product, versus just use my product. And you can imagine that translates into, if you focus on making your potential user a superhero, that translates into your content, that translates into your paid campaigns. It translates into, it even translates into the broader understanding of the market, because you start thinking, who has incentive to be better in this way? And then you go after them.
Yeah. I love that. And it's, you bring up a good point of where it applies to both B2C, or direct to consumer, and B2B, and where B2B marketers can do a better job is how do I make them better, or make their day better, make them feel better. And, as you're saying those examples, I'm picturing all of the consumer products, especially in like the beauty industry, that have mastered that. I'm going to give them that feeling. And we need to do a better job in B2B marketing of messaging in a way that's going to make them have that better feeling too.
And we all know, the reason consumer products do that is because there's 500 lipsticks on the shelf, right? So what are you going to prove? You use different ingredients? No, you're not. They're all using the same, whatever it is, gross stuff. You will know I'm not wearing lipstick. But then in B2B, I feel like everybody thinks their baby is just the prettiest looking sass baby on the shelf. And you're like, no, it's not. You ain't special. Like, what's going to distinguish you is when your customer is like, I love this product because it makes me do my job better. I love this product because I feel good when I use it. I love this product because It's whatever, you get the point. So
Yeah.
when we think about the B2B companies that distinguish themselves in this way,
Mm-hmm.
I would put dollars to donuts that a lot of it is around the way they make their customers feel and the way they make their potential customers want to feel.
Yeah.
Versus potentially the tools. I mean, especially in startups, I've been there, I've seen this on the ground level. Half the time you aren't even really delivering the features you say you're going to, but you say you're going to, and they get real excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. It's to your point, it's the alignment of the messaging to the feeling that they want to feel. And one of the things we talked about is the challenge of getting there, where a lot of brands miss out, is bringing that diversity of perspective and voices in the strategy, in the marketing planning. I've had some examples. There's been examples in the press of misses where brands try to go to market and end up offending a group, or being offensive because they didn't have diverse voices in the room. There was just a story about when Boston launched the women's soccer team, the initial brand and launch was ended up being offensive to part of their marketing, a part of their audience. And they had to start over and rebrand and scrap the initial launch. And all of this could have been prevented if there had been more diversity in the room and voices. So talk a bit about like what you've seen and how the power of that in the strategy and planning side.
I mean, I have a little bit of a hot take on that because I think there are two sides of that coin.
Mm-hmm.
The first is, if you're coming to market and you think about your market as like whatever, picture in your mind, folks that are listening, your broad market.
Yeah.
Within that market that is your target market, people are not going to look the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you should be thinking of that. That should be a part of what you're doing as you go to market.
Mm-hmm.
That said, and like on the complete other side of the coin, I think we also have the rabbit trap of pleasing every fucking person in the room. And if you're a marketer listening, you know that does not work. Like, sorry, but it does not work. You are selling to a specific group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if some other people don't like the way you came to market or it doesn't resonate for them and they're not your market, who cares? Like, sorry, from the business perspective, who cares? They're not your market. You literally need to be able to draw a line and say, I'm sorry for you folks for whom this doesn't resonate, but you are not our target market.
Yes.
So all that is to say is a good marketer is doing both of those things. First of all, they're able to not care about the people that aren't their market.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
We all want to please everybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then once you have your target market, I can 100% guarantee you, from a traditional, what we all think of as diversity perspective, and from a general diversity perspective, they are not all the same human being, right? They are not all the exact same profile. Like within, like, show me a product that is so niche that they all like look and talk the same. Mm-hmm. They don't, right?
Right.
So within that, understand that if you have 60% men and 40% women, if you aren't talking to women, you're losing 40% of your business.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Or whatever line you want to think down. So I think there's two parts to it. Marketers have to be able to look and say, sorry, folks, they didn't like that campaign. It wasn't written for you.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think that's totally fair. And that's the right of businesses and marketers. You're not going to do your job well if you're trying to please everybody. But you also dang well better be thinking about, within that target market, am I missing big chunks of my market by not speaking to who they are and not talking to them? And again, getting back to their superpowers, really thinking about who those people want to be and how they might tap into your product. Yeah. So it's definitely that's a tricky line.
Yeah. But not alienating your target market, I think is the key. And having that,
and not oversimplifying them, right? Like not oversimplifying them to the point of like, they all look and talk the same. There's a lot of diversity within your target market. Yes.
And making sure that's perspective is brought into your strategy. I think I was sharing with you an example where I went to, it was essentially a big sales pitch, but it was a half-day conference by one of the big tech B2B MarTech platforms, and there were 6 speaking segments on the main stage, and I didn't see a woman on stage until the 6th segment.
Wow.
And the second one was one of their employees interviewing 3 clients, all men. And I'm sitting in the audience thinking, and they're all chief revenue officers, that's a role I've held, and thinking about, first of all, what a bland conversation of 4 people that are talking, look alike, sound alike, and talking about the same challenges. First of all, there was no diversity in the conversation. There was no, voice that was kind of making new points or bringing new ideas. But also, I felt like, your women can be sales leaders too. Women can be CROs too. And you couldn't find one in your entire, one VP of sales or CRO in your whole audience. Like, they'd flown customers in. So it's like thinking about that aspect of when you're messaging and marketing, like you need to think about who you're selling to and make sure they're included.
So well said. And every single one of the gentlemen on those stages was probably brilliant and great at their job. That's
absolutely.
I feel like I always have to say that first, which is there's no, the individuals, when you see a list on LinkedIn of the 30 top salespeople, we've seen this, literally, they are all men.
We have seen this.
Okay, I'm sure every one of them is freaking awesome. Has nothing to do with them. But what it shows is a lack of thought and intentionality of the person who is putting the list together or putting together that panel. By the way, I have a fun word for that. We call those manels when you've got 4 men on a panel. It's a manel. Right. We're like, oh, there's a manel. And it's not that they're not great. It's not that the content wasn't great, although I agree if you have all the same perspective. And sometimes you get 3 men who look the same, but they all have very different perspectives. That's fine. We want debate. We want thought. We want pushing we want, as you said, diversity of thought. And so it just shows a lack of intentionality that they didn't say, hey, guess what? 50% of our audience, heck, let's be really generous. 30% of our audience might potentially be women. Okay, well, that was 30% of the audience that they don't feel like they see themselves in what you're selling or what you're discussing. Yeah. I mean, we, in my current company, Wednesday Women, one of the first things we did, because our mission is really just to get more examples of female executive leadership out there, because there are tons of women out there doing amazing jobs in these top roles. We've kind of, I'm not going to say we've solved it, but I would essentially say we're over the hump of, can the women do the job? They're all out there doing it. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank you to the previous generation. We can all do it. But now there's this issue of where are they? And I would say a lot of times women are out, like those CROs, I think quite a few come to mind, like Patty Duchesne of previously Postal, now Sendos. So this crazy, amazing CRO, she's out there doing the job and kicking ass. She's not on the stage. So how do we get more examples of these women leaders on the stage? And let's be honest, how do we make it easy for the people who apparently aren't taking a minute to go and ask around and say, do you know a woman CRO? I mean, if you have to ask that, I'm going to try not to judge, but but I'm going to say thank you for asking, because there's a ton of them and they're amazing. But one of the things that we did with Wednesday Women was we took all these women that we saw and we actually we have an entirely free, no paywall directory that you can sort by job function or by location. And it just, if I'm hosting a conference, whoever this was that was hosting the conference that Carrie was at, just go to the directory and search for CROs and maybe send them an email. Are you available to speak? It's the least amount of intentionality we could ask, which is to take a moment, as we said, think about your audience that you're speaking to, whether it's delivering a product or putting an event on stage, and think just for a moment about who is in that audience and are you generally representing them in some way? I know we can't represent every perfect, but think about a little bit who you want to resonate with your product or your event, I use that wrong, and I hate when people use the word resonate wrong. the people for whom you want your event to resonate with, like with whom you want your event to resonate, like let's make sure that it does, in the sense of seeing themselves or seeing their concerns or seeing the questions that they might want to ask if they were on the stage up there. So the directory is just one very, very simple way we're trying to help a little bit with that, make it really easy, make it less embarrassing for whoever organized that conference to be like, excuse me, I apparently don't know any women. Can you? Like,
Hey everyone, it's me, Carrie Curran. If you're a B2B company that sells to marketers, whether you're an agency, MarTech, or AdTech, and your revenue is either flattening, declining, or just not growing fast enough, I can help. I've spent my entire career selling, marketing, and servicing marketers, so I know firsthand the challenges they face, the buying decisions they make, and what actually moves the needle. The truth is, most marketing strategies aren't built for revenue growth, but mine are. As your fractional Chief Growth Officer, I'll bring revenue-focused marketing strategies designed specifically for selling to marketers, deep expertise in agency, MarTech, and AdTech buying behaviors, modern go-to-market strategies that include everything from brand awareness to driving loyalty and retention, and a track record of doubling and even tripling revenue for B2B companies just like yours. So if you're tired of your stagnant results and you're ready to build a marketing engine that actually drives revenue, let's talk. Visit revenuebasedmarketing.com or connect with me on LinkedIn to schedule a consultation. Together, let's build a smarter, more profitable path forward. RBMA, Revenue-Based Marketing Advisors, where revenue-based marketing that works. And I get it. Like it's funny because I've brought that up at other conferences, and I've hosted a conference where years and years ago where we made that mistake, and that was the feedback, and we were very intentional going forward, and because it wasn't a field where there were a lot of prominent women experts, and so we did have to work harder to find women. So I love that you have that directory, because that can't be the excuse anymore of, there just aren't any women. But it goes beyond just panels, obviously. And we talked about like executive teams, boards, like the diverse representation of, and its background, its education or culture, so many different things, that it's not just, women that need voices, but it's the importance of recognizing, and there's stats around. I just saw McKinsey did another data point, and I want to say it was like 15 companies that have diversity on their leadership teams and boards are outperforming those that don't. And so it's not just a nice to have, there's a business end to it. And so talk about how, like, you've started Wednesday Women to help foster this female group for support and advocating and getting voices heard and confidence. So talk about kind of what you're doing to help with all of that.
Yeah, well, and I like, as it applies to business, it's not even really like a gender thing or a diversity thing. It's really, it comes to me to two key principles of running a great business and like being successful. And I think you would hear, any of the top business minds say this. The first is thinking out of the box. If you're doing the same darn thing and you're following the same darn pattern, you're going to miss something, especially in the modern era of things are changing left and right. And you have to be
fast.
You have to have a competitive edge. You have to be doing something that someone else isn't thinking about. You have to be, sure, you can build a pretty darn big business just slogging along and copying someone else. But if you really want to be thinking about forward-thinking business, you need to think out of the box. And if everyone is the same, you will not be thinking out of the box. So like, that's a basic business principle, right? Like the second is, in my mind, and this is my personal strive, and I know not everybody approaches this way, is we should be leaning into positivity and supporting others in everything we do. Even if you all look perfectly, every single person on that panel looks the exact same. Positivity and pointing out others who are being successful is a really great trait. It's something that every business should do. It's specifically every leader should be doing. If you are a leader, you should be spending a large chunk of your time pointing to the people that you're managing and saying, wow, look at what you did. Go do more of that. Or, wow, did you see what so-and-so did? And so what we built with Wednesday Women fundamentally helps people do those two things. First of all, you're going to be meeting. So every week, the way it started out, this was just a side thing. We decided once a week, we would take an amazing woman leader who wasn't getting a lot of airtime and just celebrate her, shine a spotlight, say, look at how much she kicks ass. Everybody should know her. That's it. That was our entire mission. It essentially continues to be our entire core mission. And what that does is it gives more people more examples of what leadership looks like. And we run some different content series. So we've had fun doing that for AI. Here's 73 women leading in AI. They all have different stories. They all come from different places. Just different examples of leadership. We've done that in women in product, women in security and privacy. These are like areas, industries where women leaders aren't really stepping on stages and talk. So just giving that little boost of, you are a leader, you're kicking ass, and you have a really unique story. That's it. Tying it back to business, I wouldn't say that's necessarily even just something that has to stop or that has to be just for women. I think everybody should be doing that.
Yeah.
If you see an amazing leader, regardless of who they are, celebrate them, talk about them, amplify them. What we're doing is essentially just pouring positivity into the world. And yay, like who doesn't need a better feed? Because let's be honest, our feeds are getting pretty tragic. But then also, so, I mean, to your point, I guess the question that you kind of asked is like, what should we all be doing about it? I mean, I think a really simple thing for any leader, especially who's listening to this, is make some time in your day to amplify somebody else and the work that they're doing. To say, do you know Carrie? She's amazing. She's a leader on the sales and GTM. And like, it doesn't take any time and it's really wonderful. We're doing that at scale for women leaders, but I would say that anybody listening here could be doing it for anyone. Now, there are a lot of things we've uncovered in why women in particular tend to not be doing that as naturally or as easily, potentially, as men.
Especially advocating for themselves too.
This is the thing. Thing. Everybody that I know that's in this role and everybody that I've interacted with will celebrate others all day long. It's very, very hard for women to celebrate themselves. A lot of times it's like this, you could be viewed as egotistical, which is very negative for women. Whereas for men, it tends to be a power move. There's so much baggage that we could get into. Let's just say in general, broad sweeping stereotype, women don't like to talk about their achievements as much as men do. And so how can we fix that? Well, every single one of us listening can do it for the woman leader sitting next to them. So if we're not going to do it for ourselves, and I'll be the first to admit, I hate talking about my own accomplishments. I absolutely hate it. But damned if I can't do it for everyone else I meet. That's amazing.
Completely. And, one of the, aspects is creating an environment of belonging, that kind of this ties this all together. And when you're helping people feel confident and safe to use their voice, they're going to be more likely to speak up and share their thoughts, perspectives, and ideas. And kind of going back to, where we started with on getting closer to the customer and what they need and what they want. It's like the more we can have that confidence in speaking up and having the dialogue about what we think could work or what, where we could, something else to consider in this strategy is really what brings the win together, I think.
Yeah, we can see it across. I mean, even the concept of, if you think of just executive leaders in general, one of the big drivers of growth these days is public presence of a leader. And that's at massive companies, but it's also for sure at growth stage companies, right? Thought leadership, personal brand, what are all the buzzwords that we use? But, having your leadership out in public, setting the tone for how you're approaching the market with your product, also building relationships that then directly lead to sales.
Yeah.
These are game-changing marketing strategies.
Yep.
So we want our leaders out there.
Yeah.
A lot of the leaders are starting to recognize, a lot of executives are starting to recognize, I have to be doing this. I can't just have my heads down in the boardroom anymore. I have to be publicly visible. And to do that, you do have to have a certain level of confidence.
Yeah.
And sometimes the biggest barrier to successfully having a public presence as an executive leader is the confidence. And I think what we've done at Wednesday Women, I had someone tell me the other day, it almost got my heart going. They said, we all just want to feel seen.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to raise your hand and be like, excuse me, please see me. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
But if somebody else says, I see you and I want others to see you and you're incredible. Sometimes that's the boost of confidence, which actually gets people out there. So we've actually had partners come to us who want to be a sponsor and a partner specifically because they want to invest in in this case, woman who's in an executive role, getting more airtime. They want her to be out there. I think I mentioned earlier, Patricia Duchesne, who was with Postal, she wanted to be out there more. And so we cultivated relationships with her directly with other women. We had an event that essentially put her in kind of the host role. And then featuring her like as a featured woman, it really was a kickstart for, she's not just a kick-ass CRO. She's a kick-ass CRO you should be inviting to have on your keynotes and you should be inviting to have on your panels. And it's that move from I'm just doing the work to I'm doing the work and I'm being a public visible executive. That's hard. And some people are doing it and they've already got it down. No big deal. But public visibility is tricky. I will also just finish with visibility can look very different industry to industry. So some leaders are going to be writing white papers and they're going to be publishing things that put them in front of their industry peers. Others are going to be building a brand on LinkedIn. Hello, B2B SaaS, right? Like that's your public visibility. Others are going to be looking for keynotes and even paid speaking engagements, building their, and actually maybe we're coming full circle, but a lot of people these days are writing a book too. Right. So visibility and executive presence can look really different, but I think we all know it's important. We know it's important for our business. We know it's important for our professional success. And the more we can support everybody doing that, great. But particularly, we've just seen the need to support women in making that step into the public eye.
Yeah. And I agree with everything you said, Melissa. And like, I love your point about just sometimes needing a nudge to feel seen so that then when you feel like I can share my voice, I can raise my hand. I can, I don't have to ask, can I ask a question? I can just say what I need to say.
It makes me think about, I don't know if anybody knew this, but when you're leading a meeting, you're the icebreaker feels all old and outdated, but you're supposed to do something that lets everybody speak once. Because if they've spoken once, they feel that they can speak again. And I think there's some deep metaphor there. But that's kind of where we're at. Like if you've spoken once, if people are like, oh, look at you, you can do it again much more easily.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. I get it. I'm like that makes a lot of sense. And yes, just creating that welcoming, safe space, inviting people to share their voice and their perspective, I think is where that's where it all comes together and kind of drives that success. So for people listening today and they're thinking, gosh, I really need to help myself feel seen, or, think about who I can help feel seen. Like what are some things they can do today? How can they get started?
I love it. Well, I mean, as far as Wednesday Women goes, I would say Wednesday Women is for everyone to follow, every single person. Everybody can see these unique examples of leadership and how they got there and, their different perspectives. So go and just follow Wednesday Women. That's for everybody. If you're an executive woman listening and you're thinking, I need this, but I also need the full support to be my best self. We actually just last month launched executive membership. So it's kind of a second offering from Wednesday Women that goes much deeper for the women themselves. Definitely come and find out more about that. But I would say for everyone as well, I think the easiest way to start to be more seen is to actually start doing it for someone else. So like if everybody listening today could make some sort of, whether it's a post on LinkedIn or something else, where you're uplifting and celebrating someone else, man, woman, whoever, just put a little bit of positivity into the world and shine a light on someone who maybe hasn't been one of the perfect CEOs that always gets mentioned in the darn articles, right? But they are doing the job really well. They're super talented and they bring some sort of other uniqueness to the conversation. So, if you aren't even thinking, I want to do this for myself, just start with doing it for someone else. So easy.
Yeah.
It'll come around.
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa. So tell us, how can people get in touch with you and find Wednesday Women?
Yes. Well, I mean, we're on LinkedIn, but everything you can find for Wednesday Women is at wednesdaywomen.org. And you can reach me or my co-founder, Leslie, anytime. I would go ahead and email me at melissa@wednesdaywomen.org. I am also on LinkedIn, so connect and let's chat. And it's fun. I'll talk marketing strategy all day. I'll talk Wednesday Women all day. Really glad to be here. And you and I love to go back and forth with GTM all day, ideas all the time. So
I know it's nice. It's nice to, talk, have a great conversation without getting into the nitty gritty of tactics. So I really enjoyed our conversation today. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this powerful episode of Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast. If Melissa's message resonated, take a moment to reflect. Are you telling your story or your customers? Are you helping your audience feel seen? If not, you're missing out on that key to building trust, relevance, and long-term loyalty. For more insights like this, subscribe and share with a colleague, and check out resources at revenuebasedmarketing.com and follow me, Carrie Curran, on LinkedIn today. Until next time, keep building brands that make people feel something and drive revenue that lasts. We'll see you soon.